I grew up in a wealthy family, with money being something inherited, not earned. As a child, I didn't fully understand how everything worked, but I knew we were financially secure. Over time, as I got older, I began to understand the responsibilities and expectations that came with it. I didn't build the business, but now I'm the one running it. My great-grandfather started the company, and it's been our family's responsibility ever since. The business, DMI Industrial, has gone through several changes over the years, with different partners coming and going, but it's always been a central part of my life, shaping both my personal and professional choices. The company was originally called Melvin Dwops Bennett & Company, but after a scandal during 1 and 2, the Bennetts were pushed out. My grandfather, Robert Dwops, saved the business by investing some of his personal wealth, giving him a larger share and control. The name changed to Dwops, Melvin, and Iovine Industrial to reflect the company's growth. In the 90s, my dad shortened it to DMI Industrial to make it more memorable. Over the last 20 years, the Iovines faced challenges and sold off most of their stock, which my dad eagerly bought. Now, our family controls 78% of the company, with the Melvins holding 18% and the Iovines only 4%. Despite my wealth, I work hard like everyone else. I'm constantly balancing customer demands for lower prices with employee expectations for better pay and benefits. Unions and rising healthcare costs are tough to manage, but that's part of the job. However, this story isn't about business. It's about my life and my marriage, both of which were struggling recently. My name is Wayne. I'm 27, and while I'm well off, I wasn't happily married. My wife, Ada, who everyone calls Ai, is incredibly beautiful and charming. Maybe too much so for me. I'm just a regular guy who works hard and doesn't live a flashy lifestyle. I spend most of my time at the company's plants, making sure things run smoothly, or in the office handling financial matters. AI was the most beautiful girl in school, always dating the popular athletes. Meanwhile, I dated nice girls, and during my junior and senior years, I was in love with Maria Hess. She was nothing like Ada. Maria was petite, with pale skin and red hair, while Ada is tall, blonde, and tan. When Maria first transferred to our school, I was instantly drawn to her. She approached me to show her around, and despite a slightly awkward start, we hit it off. We walked around the school, and by the time I led her to her next class, I could tell something special was developing between us. From that moment, everything changed. After Maria sat down, I introduced her to everyone at the table. Some of the girls offered to show her around, but she politely declined, saying she had me for that. A few people were surprised because I usually only hung out with girls as friends, never in serious relationships, since I knew most high school romances wouldn't last. I attended most school dances with friends, without any pressure for more than just a good time. I typically went with girls like Louise Jefferson, Edith Bunker, and Maude Finley, who were part of my circle. The jocks and cheerleaders had their high school relationships, but the rest of us didn't take things that seriously. From the start, Maria shook things up. Near the end of lunch, Paul Ace Fraley from the jock table came over with a couple of cheerleaders to introduce himself to Maria. He clearly had his eye on her. When he told her his nickname was Ace, Maria asked if it was because he played cards, adding she thought gambling was dumb. His confidence wavered, and when she asked him if he used steroids, implying they affected his brain and ego, he was clearly embarrassed. I tried to defuse the situation by complimenting his performance in last week's football game. Ace quickly shifted gears, puffing out his chest again and inviting me to the game that weekend, before walking away with his pride intact. As Ace left, Ada, the school's princess, smiled at me for the first time, acknowledging my existence. Maria noticed this and squeezed my hand tightly, glaring at her. The table burst into stifled laughter. Maria had definitely made an impression. After lunch, we had an assembly. The principal introduced Maria as the newest student and asked her what she liked about the area. With her sharp sense of humor, she replied, "I like the Wayne," confusing the principal, who thought she meant rain. The whole room laughed, and I was left red-faced as my friends teased me. Over the next few weeks, several athletes tried and failed to get Maria's attention. She even declined an invitation to join the cheerleading squad, joking that she was too uncoordinated and didn't want to embarrass herself. This puzzled some people, especially after seeing her impressive dives at a pool party I hosted, where she had shown surprising athleticism. Maria was full of contradictions. My parents adored her, and my dad urged me not to let her slip away. Most of my guy friends said I was lucky, and while half the girls liked her, the other half didn't. If a girl showed any interest in me, Maria could be ruthless, like with Edith, Louise, and Maud, who learned that firsthand. Once Maria disliked someone, there was no redemption. Edith experienced this when she casually asked me to the Sadie Hawkins dance, unaware that Maria had already claimed me. Maria immediately responded, coldly telling Edith that she had already asked me, accusing her of trying to embarrass her. Edith was confused, as we'd always hung out with different people without it being a big deal. But from then on, Maria made sure Edith was excluded from events, with invitations often being accidentally incorrect, like the time Edith showed up to a formal dinner dressed as a clown. I felt guilty, but I was too in love with Maria to stand up to her. In our senior year, things intensified. Maria made sure we had the same schedule, even taking auto shop with me, and we spent nearly every moment together. We were accepted to the same colleges, and Maria suggested we work over the summer to rent an apartment together. My parents approved, thinking it would teach me responsibility, and my dad even gave us jobs. I was thrilled, and Maria explained that once we had the apartment, we'd no longer be pures. She said she had fallen for me the moment we met, and though it took me a bit longer, I felt the same way. Some friends thought it was because of my family's money, but Maria liked me long before she knew I was wealthy. However, none of our plans came to fruition. Just 2 weeks before graduation, Maria's family was in a car accident after her grandmother's funeral. Her father, driving under the influence, crashed, eliminating himself, his wife, and their son. Maria fought for her life for nearly a week but never regained consciousness. When she passed, it felt like part of my heart was ripped away. I spent the summer in deep depression, unable to understand how life could lift me so high only to drop me so hard. By the time I was ready to function again, it was too late to get into a dorm, so I rented an apartment for college. My first weeks were miserable. Though I had friends at the same school, I was still too depressed for them to know how to approach me. I dressed entirely in black, from my clothes to my sunglasses, and looking back, I may have inadvertently started the goth trend. It took an old friend, Ace Fraley, to pull me out of my depression. Ace wasn't doing well in college. He was struggling on the football team and in his classes, on the verge of losing his scholarship. His high school habits of hanging out with the popular crowd weren't helping him anymore. Ace and Ada had drifted into a relationship, though it wasn't going smoothly. Jack had left for the military, and Ada was too focused on her studies to join the cheerleading team, which didn't sit well with Ace. They started arguing more often. I later found out they weren't a good match, clinging to each other out of familiarity as they both adjusted to being less significant in the college environment. I was deep in my own depression when one afternoon, I overheard Ace and Ada arguing loudly. As Ace, clearly drunk, raised his hand to hit her, I intervened. "Ace, what are you doing?" I asked, reminding him that hitting anyone, especially in public, would get him kicked off the team. He mumbled an apology, gave me a drunken hug, and walked away. Ada stood there, shaken, and admitted Ace had almost hit her before. She then broke down, hugging me and crying. I didn't know how to respond, and though I tried to stay composed, I couldn't help but notice how good she smelled and felt in that moment, reminding me that I was still human, despite everything I'd been through. "Thanks, Wayne," Ada said, giving me a strange look. For a second, I thought she might have felt how close we were. She seemed unsure of what to say. "Wayne, we've known each other a long time, and I've wanted to say I'm sorry about your girlfriend. I just didn't know how to bring it up since we never really talked." "Thanks," I replied. "I've been pretty out of it. For 2 years, I know this might be the wrong time," she interrupted. "But do you remember the first day Maria came to our high school?" "I remember," I said. "It was the first time you ever noticed me." "It wasn't the first time I noticed you," she corrected. "It was just the first time I got close enough to see the kind of person you were. You handled that situation so well, letting everyone keep their pride. I wanted to talk to you afterward, but what?" I asked, intrigued. "You know, Maria," she said softly. "It wasn't just Maria," I reminded her. "You were with Jack too." "That's different," she replied. "Jack was a good guy, and as long as I was up front with him, he'd have been okay. But Maria? No way. What do you mean?" I asked, curious. "From the first day Maria came to school, she made it clear to everyone that you were hers. She didn't care about popularity, cheerleading, or clubs. You were her priority. While your group of friends dated around freely, once Maria showed up, it all changed. Anyone who tried to get close to you ended up on her bad side, and once you were on her list, you stayed there." I thought back to the day Ace had tried to sit with us. Yeah, I remember how she humiliated Ace when he tried to bring her over to his table. She really knew how to cut people down, I said. Exactly, Ada nodded. Even when people thought she'd be a great cheerleader after seeing her dives at your pool, she resisted anything that could come between you two. Is that bad? I asked. Not necessarily, she replied. But maybe having the chance to experience other people would have been good for you both. Maybe, I admitted. All I know is I miss her. It feels like part of my heart is gone. Wayne, I know this sounds harsh, but you still have friends if you need to talk, she said gently. I know, I replied. It's just easier to sit in my apartment and grieve. Ada's eyes widened. Wait, you have an apartment? She asked. Yeah, I couldn't get into the dorms at the last minute. Do you realize how crowded the dorms are? She exclaimed. I'm sharing a room designed for 2 with 3 other girls. It's chaotic. I can barely study. I guess I'm lucky, I said. Wayne, you have so much life ahead of you, she said softly. If Maria loved you as much as you loved her, she'd want you to keep living, for both of you. I nodded, waved goodbye, and hurried off to my class, still thinking about everything she said. About a day after our conversation, things started to change. I was sitting on the couch in front of my fireplace reading a chapter for class, with a bowl of popcorn and a cold beer. Even though I was only 19 and technically not old enough to drink, it was my apartment. So I made my own rules. I heard a knock on the door and answered it to find Ada standing there. She smiled and said, I was debating. Debating what? I asked, confused. I was trying to decide if you're an a-hole or just out of practice, she said, walking past me into the apartment. She explained that she'd asked some of our high school friends about me, and they all thought I was a good, normal guy, despite being rich. So I figured you're just out of practice with women, she continued. What am I out of practice at? I asked. Reading signals, she replied. For the past 2 years, you've been taken, so you missed out on that. I tried to defend myself, saying I never really learned that stuff. She smiled. Yesterday, I hinted about how lucky you are to have all this space, hoping you'd invite me to study here. She looked around the apartment, clearly impressed. But you didn't even tell me where you live. Sorry, I said. Maybe I am out of practice. No harm done, she said, looking at the fireplace and the popcorn. So, what are you doing? I held up my book, explaining I had chapters to read before class. I don't want to disturb you, she said, taking a seat in the chair. I like beer too, you know. That night was quiet. We both read in near silence, occasionally glancing at each other, but not much was said. Around 9:30, she stretched and thanked me for letting her use the space. I thought your building's curfew was 11? I asked. I had to take 3 buses to get here, she smiled. I don't want to be out late alone. I offered to drive her home, and she smiled, saying, Your friends were right. You are a nice guy. The next night, she knocked again, asking if she could get her spot back. This time, she brought another girl, Heather, who was studying pre-med and couldn't focus in her own dorm. Heather was quiet, took juice instead of beer, and joined us for another evening of studying. Ada settled into her chair, and we all worked peacefully together. The next evening, Ada came back alone. When I asked about Heather, she shrugged and said she didn't need a ride home, as she could take the bus. I insisted on driving her, though, not wanting her to be out alone in the cold. She smiled and started preparing a quick dinner, saying we couldn't live on popcorn and beer. After dinner, we settled into our usual spots on the couch. This time, though, there was more eye contact, and she kept smiling at me. I asked her about Ace, and she casually mentioned they were no longer together. I apologized, but she smiled and said, I wouldn't be here with you most nights if we were still together. I'm not that kind of girl. Later, when I was driving her home, she asked if I was going home for the weekend. When I said I hadn't decided, she hinted that if I wasn't, she'd like to go to a movie with me. I was surprised and hesitated, telling her she was like a goddess, and I couldn't understand why she'd want to go out with me. She cut me off, saying, I'm just a person. If I were that amazing, Jack wouldn't have left for the army. After everything, including losing my pureness to him, all he said was, okay then. Tears welled up in Ada's eyes as she recounted. The next day, Jack called to tell me he was leaving early for camp to get a head start. Officer training is competitive, apparently. Before he left, I was expecting some heartfelt goodbye after all our time together in high school. Instead, he just said, well, bye. She shook her head. Some goddess, right? I hugged her as she continued. And Ace was worse. When I got to school here, he just came up to me and said, Jack's gone. I guess it's us now. He acted like he inherited me. He even told me he knew I'd slept with Jack. I guess Jack talked more to him about it than to me. Ace treated me like I was just a hand-me-down. You probably saw some of that. Then she paused and added, Wayne, back in high school, when you thought I noticed you for the first time, if Maria hadn't claimed you, I would have done more than just notice. What I saw was a guy who kept a bad situation from getting worse. You gave Ace a way out and stopped him from getting expelled or getting into a fight. You kept everyone's dignity intact. I never forgot that, but Maria was always watching you. That's why this might not be a good idea, I said. Wayne, I hate to say this, but she's gone. You need to keep living. She wouldn't want you to be miserable. So as a friend, let's go to a movie. And we did. It was just the beginning. Soon, Ada and I spent all our free time together. We continued studying together, often with food she cooked. After Thanksgiving break, things changed. We'd met each other's families. My parents loved Ada, especially my dad, and assumed we were more than friends. When I explained we weren't, my mom just gave me a knowing look. Ada's parents acted the same, treating me like part of the family. We spent more time together, and when we went out, we were always close. One night, when a snowstorm was forecasted, Ada still insisted on coming over to study, dismissing the storm warnings. She lit the fireplace, and we settled in with popcorn and beer. Hours later, when it was time to take her home, we realized we were snowed in. The blizzard was too intense, classes were canceled, and there was no way for me to get her back to her dorm. Ada smiled at me and said, "I guess I'll have to stay over." I felt like a cartoon wolf watching sheep. I was nervous, but Ada was perfectly calm. "It'll be fine, Wayne," she said. "Just get me a t-shirt or sweatshirt to sleep in, and I'll crash on the couch." I offered her my bed, but she insisted on the couch. We settled in and watched an old movie, The Girl Can't Help It. Ada reminded me of Jane Mansfield, blonde, curvy, with an incredible smile. As the movie went on, Ada, wearing just my sweatshirt and underwear, fell asleep on me. I gently placed a pillow under her head and covered her with a blanket. She looked beautiful, and I was tempted to kiss her, but I resisted and headed to bed. The snow outside was piling up, and I realized we might be stuck for a while. I drifted off, only to wake up later to the smell of bacon. Ada was in the kitchen, but something seemed off. When I greeted her, she didn't seem as cheerful as the night before. We sat down for breakfast, and almost at the same time, we both spoke. I asked if something was wrong, and she blurted out, "You don't like me, do you?" Surprised, I asked why she thought that. She explained that last night had been planned. She'd lied about the weather, packed a bag with clothes and makeup, and expected something more to happen. "Why didn't you kiss me?" she asked. "That was a magic moment, and you let it slip away." I stumbled to explain, saying I wasn't good at reading signals. "When I looked at you, I did want to kiss you," I admitted. "Let me guess. You felt like you were cheating on Maria?" she asked. "No, I said. I didn't want to take advantage of you. After what you told me about Ace and Jack, I didn't want to be just another guy in the line." Ada sighed. "My luck continues," she said. "Jack wasn't great, but that was partly my fault. It was prom, and I went along with it because everyone else was. It wasn't romantic or special, it just happened," Ada continued. "Then Ace came along, and I just went along with it again. We were a couple by default, and he kept other guys away from me. We had intimacy because it was expected, not because I wanted to. But then I started spending time with this really nice guy, someone who treated me better than anyone else had outside of my parents. He never made a move, though, and I kept waiting for him to. Eventually, I decided to help things along and asked him out." Her eyes widened. "We started going out, and there were nights when I'd stay in his apartment studying. I wanted to kiss him so badly, but he never did anything. When our legs brushed on the couch, I was so turned on, but still nothing happened. I saw the storm coming and imagined being snowed in with him. But even then, after we snuggled on the couch, he still didn't make a move. So I thought he just didn't want me." I stayed silent. "Wayne, you said you don't know the signals. A girl walking around in your apartment in just a shirt and underwear wants you. If she snuggles close under a blanket, she wants you. If she gets into bed with you, she really wants you." "Oh," I muttered. "See what I mean?" She sighed. "The one guy I really want does nothing." I reached out, gently touched her face, and pulled her into a kiss. It was electric, and soon we were holding each other tightly, kissing passionately. The moment was filled with magic. Bacon fell off the table, but Ada didn't care. She led me to the living room, urging me to light the fire. As the fire glowed, she pulled off my sweatshirt, revealing her body, which was even more stunning than I imagined. She smiled and asked, "Why am I the only one under the blanket?" I quickly undressed and joined her, our bodies touching and igniting a spark between us. "Wayne, I'm on the pill," she said, then asked, "Was Maria the only person you've been with?" I hesitated. No one, I admitted shyly. Her mood softened. You've never done this before? She asked gently. I shook my head, embarrassed. That's wonderful, she reassured me. Let me take care of everything. She guided me through what she liked, showing me how to touch her. It was magical, and soon we were wrapped up in each other. We made love, and it was incredible. Afterward, we lay together by the fire, but something seemed to be on her mind. What's wrong, I asked. She sighed. I just feel like I wasted my first time. This was what it should have been like. It was so beautiful. We don't live in a perfect world, I said, and maybe it helped that one of us knew what to do. She smiled, raising her head. You're being silly, she said. Wayne, I came. Women don't always finish, you know. I hadn't known that, but Ada smiled and reassured me. Maybe that's why intimacy never seemed special to me before. I'd never really enjoyed it until now. Then she playfully slapped me. You're an idiot. We could have been doing this for weeks, she teased, resting her head back on my chest. For the rest of that day, and the next, we explored each other, discovering what we liked. We tried new things, keeping what we liked and discarding the rest. We found what truly connected us. Over time, we grew even closer. Of course, life wasn't perfect. I struggled with depression over Maria, feeling guilty at times. On her end, Ada dealt with jealousy early on, but after our first Valentine's Day, when I told her I loved her, she changed. She blossomed, realizing we were meant to be, and stopped worrying about other women. From then on, we faced our challenges together, growing stronger as a couple. After that, Ada changed. She started walking with more confidence, wearing clothes she knew would catch my attention, as we were both very into each other physically. She didn't care about other men, but they certainly noticed her. She transformed from the distant beauty men assumed they had no chance with to someone everyone wanted. Even Ace, who was struggling in school, started telling people he had been with her and dumped her. I had to confront him, and though I felt bad for him, I asked him to stop spreading lies. One big challenge for us was telling our parents we were living together. We built it up in our minds, putting it off for months. But when we finally did, it turned out to be no big deal. My parents loved her, and her father even joked that he already knew. He mentioned how obvious it was that we belonged together, and he didn't mind saving money on room and board. His approval left us relieved. Fast forward 2 years, and we graduated, got married, and both began working at my family's company. Ada joined the marketing department on her own merits and kept her work life professional. Everything seemed perfect, until things began to unravel. A few weeks before Halloween, Ada started acting differently. We argued more, and her usually calm demeanor became confrontational. Our once active lovemaking life dwindled, and I found myself retreating to my den to avoid the tension. She began staying out late, and I suspected she was having an affair. The breaking point came when she came home drunk one night, wearing nothing but a long coat, missing her skirt and underwear. She showered and went to bed, but I couldn't sleep beside her and moved to another room. The next morning, I told her I wanted a divorce, accusing her of cheating. Ada didn't deny my request, but warned she would take everything since we had no prenup. My lawyer confirmed I'd need proof of infidelity to stand a chance. Despite her smirks and glares, there was sadness in her eyes, as though she was hurting too. Something felt off, like she was being controlled or manipulated. But I couldn't figure it out. Even though everyone believed Ada loved me deeply, I was left retreating into my den, dealing with the depression that came with watching my marriage fall apart.
My once perfect life was falling apart. I kept hoping Wayne would realize what I wanted. One look at me should have been enough for him to understand. But instead, we were drifting further apart, and he didn't seem to see what he was about to lose. At first, I thought withholding Zex might snap him out of it, but that only hurt me too. I wasn't successful anyway. He'd touch me and my body would respond instantly. I had to try something else, but nothing worked. Ever since that woman visited him at work, he'd been different. I even watched him in the den a few times, and what I saw shocked me. I didn't know how to deal with it. I ended up taking a day off to see an expert. She advised me to ramp up my efforts to grab his attention and gave me something expensive, though I doubted it would work. I ran into Ace, who had just returned to town. He was different, attentive and kind, telling me how beautiful I was and how Wayne didn't appreciate me. From there, things spiraled. The final straw came when Ace brought me home drunk. I kissed him at our door just as Wayne opened it. Ace looked terrified and ran off, while I nearly stumbled inside. Wayne stormed off to the den. We had a Halloween party planned that night with our families and friends attending, but everything was falling apart.
I settled into the old leather chair in my den without turning on the computer. I unlocked the desk drawer with the only key I had and pulled out the diary. In just a few weeks, this little book had become my most valued possession. I remembered the day a woman came to my office to give it to me. She had no appointment, but insisted my secretary Joan let her in, saying it was about Maria. Hearing Maria's name sent a chill through me, even though it was a warm day. I realized this must be Maria's sister, Laura. I felt a pang of guilt for never reaching out to her after the accident. We hadn't spoken at the funeral, each locked in our own grief. Laura walked in nervously, and I met her halfway. She handed me the book and said, "You have to take this. I can't keep it anymore. She wants you to have it." I thought she might be unstable. Maybe grief had overwhelmed her. She pressed Maria's worn diary into my hands, looking almost relieved. I recognized it immediately. Maria had always written in it. The pages were damaged, and the cover was partially burned. "This is Maria's diary," I said, remembering how she used to plan our future in it. Laura didn't want anything for it. "She had it with her at the end," she said, scanning the room nervously. She left quickly after that, seeming calmer once the diary was in my possession. I barely noticed her departure as I flipped through the pages, searching for memories I recognized and new insights from Maria's final days. As I read, I felt a strange sensation, as if someone was watching me. The office door closed on its own, and for a moment I thought Ada was playing a trick on me like she had before. She'd once hidden in my office bathroom and surprised me, leading to an intimate encounter right there in my office. Afterward, when we stepped out, people gave us strange looks, and Joan, ever the professional, ushered us back into my office. She told me to handle my employees while advising Ada to wait until the coast was clear. Joan pointed out that Ada's hair was messy, her makeup smeared, and visible bite marks were on her neck. "You look like a vampire got a hold of you," Joan had said, noting the unmistakable signs of our encounter. Joan reminded Ada that while she was beautiful and people would notice, this was still a workplace and discretion was key. As I thought about that past incident with Ada, the atmosphere in the room seemed to shift, almost as if the room itself was angry at me. It felt ridiculous, and I realized I might just be overworked. I decided to take the rest of the afternoon off, bringing Maria's diary home with me to read. Since she had passed years ago, I didn't feel like I was invading her privacy. Maybe reading her thoughts would bring me some comfort and help me move on. Though I loved Ada deeply, a part of my heart would always belong to Maria. Normally, I'd text Ada to meet me at home, but that day it didn't feel right. I got home, went to the den, and started reading. Once I began, I couldn't stop. The more I read, the stranger I felt, as though I wasn't alone in the room. The air seemed to swirl around me, and it felt as if Maria herself was present. I was exhausted after just an hour, feeling drained not just mentally, but physically. Ada knocked on the door and came in, though she'd been in the den countless times before. She looked around as if the room felt different. "Come on, let's have dinner," she said. "I missed you." But as she spoke, I felt a strange tension, almost like a cloud of hate directed at her. She seemed to feel it too. "Let's get out of here," she said. "This room feels weird. Maybe we should redecorate?" I tried to stand, but I felt too weak. Ada helped me up, suggesting I go to bed, thinking I might be coming down with something. The next day, I found myself drawn back to the diary. Reading more, I started to relive memories of my time with Maria, discovering things I hadn't known. One surprising revelation was that no teacher had told Maria to ask me to show her around school. She had made it up, just as a way to meet me. From the moment she saw me, she believed we were destined to be together. Maria's diary revealed her belief in supernatural abilities passed down in her family, especially among the women. She believed she had the gift, an ability to enchant people with a touch. While I wasn't sure if this was real or just a fantasy, I couldn't deny that being with her had always felt magical. The diary also revealed how much Maria had struggled with jealousy, even feeling threatened by Ada that first day we met. Maria had noticed Ada looking at me and had made it her mission to alienate her, seeing her as competition. She had also sensed Ace's intentions and immediately disliked him, but my stepping in had reassured her that we were meant to be together. Lastly, I discovered Maria had been far more ready for us to take the next step than I'd realized. She had even gone on the pill in preparation for our first night together, which she had planned for when we moved into our apartment. She may have died a pure, but she had laid out our future in her mind, and everything had gone according to her plan, until the accident. The strangest part of Maria's diary was learning that she never wanted to go on that final trip with her family. She had even argued with her dad, reminding him that her sister didn't have to go. He assumed she wanted to stay behind to be with me, But when Maria insisted she was still a pure, he didn't believe her. Frustrated, she even offered to have her mother take her to the doctor to prove it, but her dad shut down the discussion, saying she was going because he said so. The next day, I drove over to say goodbye. We hugged tearfully while her parents rolled their eyes. Her dad, annoyed, said, "It's not like you're never going to see each other again. We'll be back in a few days." The last memory I had of her was her face pressed against the car window as they drove off. I loved her so much. As I thought about that moment, I felt like I saw someone out of the corner of my eye. I turned, but no one was there. Then, I heard what sounded like laughter. I tried to shake it off, thinking I was losing my mind. I had spent the whole afternoon thinking about the past, and I wondered if I'd ever truly move on from Maria. Suddenly, I heard a voice, clear as day. "You aren't meant to be with that bloated hoe. She's cheating on you." I turned and saw a translucent figure near me, Maria. She hadn't aged a day, still looking like she did at 18. I panicked, knocking over my chair and falling to the floor. "I'm not a vampire," she said with a smirk. "I'm here because we still feel the same way about each other." I stammered, "What do you mean?" "My spirit hasn't been able to move on," she said. "There are things I never got to do that keep me here." Maria explained that it had taken her years to gather enough strength to manifest, fueled by the connection to her diary. She'd spent a long time haunting her sister's house, trying to get her to give me the diary. After scaring her family and spelling it out on the bathroom mirror, her sister finally delivered it. Maria continued, "I thought not saying goodbye was what kept me here, but now I see there's more. Wayne, you've made a mess. You don't belong with Ada. She's cheating on you. If she really loved you, I wouldn't be here." As her image began to flicker, she said, "I'm out of energy, but I'll be back tomorrow. Love you." Then she disappeared, leaving only a strange smell behind. Later, Ada came to get me for dinner and noticed I was burning up. She helped me to bed and brought me soup. As she lay next to me, I couldn't help but think about what Maria had said. "Ada, maybe you shouldn't be around me if I'm sick," I said. "If you've got it, I want it too," she replied. "I promised you in sickness and in health." I hadn't suspected Ada was cheating before Maria said it, but now doubt crept into my mind. Ada asked, "Are you done reading Maria's diary?" "No, there's still a lot left," I said. Ada's expression changed, and for the first time, I began to look at her differently. A few days later, Ada told me she was staying home from work, but instead she went out of town without explaining why. When I asked her about her day, she didn't exactly lie, but she didn't tell the truth either. Later, I checked her credit card receipts and found out she had flown to New Orleans, stayed for an hour or two, and then returned. It seemed like she went there to meet someone and kept it from me. My mind spiraled. Maria had been right all along. I had always wondered why someone as stunning as Ada would choose a regular guy like me. For the first few years, I kept expecting her to leave me, but she never did. We'd been married for 7 years, and now it seemed like the 7-year itch had set in. Ada, now bored and with the means to do whatever she wanted, was cheating on me. Deep down, I didn't want to believe it. Maybe she had been cheating all along, and I had been too blind to see it. At events, men constantly hit on her. She was the kind of woman who got a lot of attention. Meanwhile, I was just an average-looking guy. Maybe she had married me for an easy life. That trip out of town made me start watching her more closely, and I consulted with lawyers about filing for divorce. The lawyers told me that without solid proof of her infidelity, I'd be at a disadvantage. While she couldn't take any part of the company or my stock, she could get half of my personal assets, which was substantial. Surprisingly, Ada didn't want the divorce. She said she'd fight it, and even if I won, she'd take everything she could. My lawyer suggested an open marriage, a common arrangement for some couples these days, but that wasn't for me. I believed in being with one woman. My problem, though, was that I was torn between 2 women, one alive and one dead, and somehow the dead one seemed to have the upper hand. I retreated into my den more frequently, and Ada's actions became even more suspicious. The final straw was the night of the Halloween party when she came home drunk with Ace. I couldn't take it anymore. I left her, drunk and barely able to stand, with a look of sadness in her eyes. Maybe things had gotten so bad that even she could see it. I still wanted to talk and work things out, perhaps give her some money, and let her keep her job at the company. Deep down, I still loved Ada, but I couldn't tolerate her cheating. As I sat in the den, Maria appeared, and I immediately felt drained. I could wake up feeling full of energy, but by the end of the day, I was always exhausted to the point of feeling lifeless. "You don't have to put up with her cheating," Maria said. "She's not right for you." Maria had been getting stronger each time she appeared. This time she ran her ghostly hands over me, sending tingles through my body. I couldn't control myself as she touched me, and before long, I had lost control and stained my boxers again. "We would be so good together," she said. "Tell me how, and I'll divorce Ada tomorrow," I said, guilt washing over me as soon as the words left my mouth. "No, Wayne," she replied, smiling. By now, Maria had become almost solid, her feet firmly on the ground. "We need her. She'll never love you like I do, and she won't give you a divorce because she's too focused on the money. But we can still win this. It has to be tonight." "Why tonight?" I asked. "Because it's Halloween, the one night when the veil between worlds is thinnest. If you bring Ada into this room and give her my diary, it will give me the power to be with you fully, without being trapped in the body of an 18-year-old. Imagine, Wayne, us together forever. I'll show you everything I've ever wanted to do to you." Fueled by anger and the confusion I always felt around Maria, I agreed to something I never would have considered otherwise. "It has to be at midnight," she said. "Trust me, you're going to love this." A few hours later, the Halloween party was in full swing. Friends, family, and business contacts mingled, enjoying themselves. Ada, as usual, looked stunning in a Supergirl costume, though she wore an odd necklace that didn't quite fit. Men followed her around the party, and she flirted with them, but only when she knew I was watching. When I wasn't looking, she seemed sad. Maybe she was just trying to provoke me, reminding me she could do whatever she wanted. I was fed up. Any doubts I had about Maria's plan vanished. 5 minutes before midnight, I moved through the crowd. "Wayne, what are you supposed to be?" my mother-in-law asked, noticing my trench coat. "A flasher?" I whipped out a samurai sword and said, "I'm Duncan MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod, the Highlander." Everyone laughed, including Ted from sales, who joked about my cheesy costume. I replied, "So what? My wife likes it," glancing at Ada. She smiled at me, and I knew immediately that I was making a mistake. Still, I grabbed Ada's hand and led her through the crowd. One man even called out to her, and although she assured him I was her husband and she loved me, I was furious again. We locked ourselves in the den, and people outside made playful assumptions about what we were doing. They had no idea. Ada started to speak, but I silenced her, pushing Maria's diary into her lap. She told me she loved me, and I knew in that moment I'd made a terrible mistake. But it was too late. Maria appeared, and Ada's eyes widened in shock. "You lying witch!" Maria hissed. "It's too late for you now!" There was screaming and a strange glowing from Ada's necklace. Her body shook violently, as if she were having a seizure. Then a puff of green smoke filled the room, and everything went silent. "Ida?" I asked. She smiled at me, but something felt off. Suddenly, I felt stronger than I had in weeks. "Guess again," she replied with a smirk and kissed me passionately. "How soon can we get rid of these people?" she asked, eager to go to bed. "You have to call me Ada," she added. "How does she even walk with this body? It's like Jell-O on springs." I should have realized something was wrong, but Ada had always joked about her figure. She clung to me throughout the party, asking who everyone was. It felt good to have her touch, but something was different. "Maria, where is Ada?" I finally asked. Maria glared at me. "How should I know? Don't ask me about her again. Only you and I matter." "Maria, I loved Ada," I said firmly. "If she hadn't cheated, I'd still be with her. She was kind and loving, even through my struggles with grief over you. She was patient, and not many women would have been so understanding." Maria, smiling strangely, said, "I hope she's moved on, somewhere happy." "Maria," I said, "I loved you, but I loved Ada too. It was a different kind of love, more mature. Maybe it didn't burn as hot, but it was real. And for the record, I liked her body just the way it was, so please don't do anything to mess it up." I took her hand and we returned to the party. As soon as we stepped out, people smiled, and I found myself explaining who everyone was. The first awkward moment came when Ada's parents approached us. "Ada, you should be ashamed of yourself," her mother scolded, "leaving a house full of guests to do whatever you were doing in that room." "Ada, we know exactly what you were doing," her father chimed in. "From the sounds of it, you were doing a good job too." Normally, Ada would have been embarrassed, but Maria, in Ada's body, wasn't fazed. She smirked at her dad and said, "It was really good, Daddy. We'll probably be doing that a lot more." For the rest of the night, I answered questions for Maria, still in Ada's body, as we encouraged guests to leave. After the last one left around 2 in the morning, she grabbed my hand and dragged me upstairs. "I've been waiting for this," she said. She seemed to know the layout of the house, which should have raised a red flag, but I was too caught up in the moment. She quickly undressed, and standing without clothes before me, my body reacted. Despite the familiarity of Ada's body, the fact that someone else was inside of it added an odd excitement. I felt a pang of guilt, but it didn't last long. She teased, "Don't hurt me." I've never done this before, before pulling me into an intense embrace. We kissed deeply, and it felt electric. We stayed locked in that moment for what seemed like forever before finally falling into bed together. Everything about making love to her felt familiar. I'd been with Ada for 7 years, and though I tried to convince myself that the similarities were due to the shared body, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was Maria's spirit driving it all. The next morning, Maria woke up smiling. Last night was worth waiting 7 years for. Promise we'll do this every night. There'll be nights when we can't, I said hesitantly. That's nonsense, she replied. You're not afraid of a little blood, are you? And there are always other options. That confirmed it was Maria. Ada had never been into rear penetration, finding it disgusting. For a week, we didn't leave the house, spending most of our time in bed. But I knew there would be challenges ahead. Maria had died as a high schooler. She hadn't gone to college, earned Ada's degree, or worked her job. She wouldn't be able to fake Ada's career or the relationships Ada had built over the years. No matter how well she tried, she couldn't convincingly be Ada in the long run. The worst part, though, was realizing that while I had longed for Maria all these years, now that I had her back, I missed Ada. I had shared 2 brief years of youthful fun with Maria, but over 7 years, I had built a real life with Ada. After a few intense weeks with Maria, I found myself aching for my wife again. One afternoon, while daydreaming about something Ada had said, I found myself crying because I missed her so much. Maria saw me and lost it. "Why are you crying, Wayne?" she demanded. When I didn't answer, she figured it out. "You're crying over that hoe, aren't you?" she screamed. "Well, stop it. You're stuck with me now, so get over it." And that was exactly how I felt, stuck. The next day at work, I was surprised to hear my secretary tell me I had an appointment Ada had set up weeks ago. The door opened, and Ace walked in. "What are you doing here?" I snapped. "Wayne, we're old friends," he said. "After what happened with Ada, how could we ever be friends?" I asked. "What are you talking about?" he said, confused. Then it hit him. "Oh, you don't know, do you?" "No what?" I asked angrily. "That you had an affair with my wife?" "No, dumbass," he replied. "I always thought you were the smarter one. Call me when you figure it out." "Oh, wait, Ace, what's going on?" I asked. He sighed and explained that he'd grown up since college. In high school, everyone liked me because I was dependable, while he had been arrogant, thinking he could have whatever he wanted, including Ada. He admitted that he treated her poorly in college, assuming she was his by default, but he regretted his actions. He said Ada had forgiven him, and recently she had asked for his help to make me jealous so I'd start paying attention to her again. It had all been an act. Ace then showed me pictures of his wife, Brenda, and their kids, saying how much he loved her. He assured me that nothing ever happened between him and Ada. She loved me too much to cheat on me. His words hit me hard. I had ruined my life for a fantasy. "Ace, you can have any job you want," I told him. "I'll call HR and arrange it." "Thanks, Wayne," he said. "Say hi to Ada for me." After he left, I locked the door and broke down in tears. I knew I had made a huge mistake, but I had to find a way to fix it. There had to be a way to get Ada back. I left the office and drove around in my new Mustang. The car had over 500 horsepower and lots of custom features, which always helped me clear my mind. After a while, I pulled into a park to think. It didn't take long to realize that I wanted Ada back, more than I had ever wanted Maria. Being near Maria made me feel like I was cheating on my wife. If it was the last thing I did, if it cost me everything, I'd get Ada back. I believed that whatever had happened could be undone, but I was certain Maria wasn't going to help me. When I got home much later than usual, Maria was waiting for me. "Where were you?" she asked. "We need to talk." "Maria, you can have whatever you want," I said. "You're alive again and in my wife's body. You can take all my money. I can't give you the company since it has to stay in the family, and I've realized I can't give you my heart either." She didn't scream or get upset as I expected. She just listened. "Maria, I loved you when I was young, but I've grown up. What I have with Ada is real love, and I let it slip away." "But that hoe cheated on you," she spat. "Don't ever call her that again," I said, standing up. "And she didn't cheat. She was just trying to make me see what I had. If anything, I cheated on her with you. Though, is it cheating with a ghost?" "You didn't cheat," she said. "And she wasn't really a ghost. She was a succubus. She'd haunted her sister's family for years until she gave her sister that diary to pass on to you. Once the book got to you, she used it to drain your energy and grow stronger." "But how?" I asked. "How did you get your body back?" "I never lost it," she smiled. "It's been me all along. I pretended to be her to see if you really wanted her or me. Now that you've had your chance with her, I hope you'll leave her in the past." "But you acted so much like her," I said. "That was easy," she replied. "I watched her with you for years. All I had to do was act angry at everyone but you and never let you out of my sight. But what about everything else? I started. Look, Wayne, she said, I love you. I always have. We had an amazing relationship until you shut me out to be with her. I was desperate, and yeah, letting you do things like rear penetration was worth it if it meant getting you back. I'd do anything for you. She may have been the woman of your dreams, but I'm the one who's really here. No, I said. You're the woman of my dreams. And don't you forget it, she smirked. So how did you, and where is she? I asked. I checked the den about a week after this all started, she said. I saw you moving like you were humping the air, and I got furious. I thought, why is he doing that when I'd gladly let him have me anytime, anywhere? Then I saw her. Whether it was my anger or my love for you, I finally saw Maria. I also realized she was draining the life out of you. So I went to New Orleans to see a gypsy who knows about these things. She told me what Maria had become and gave me ways to protect myself. She said succubi usually just feed off their victims until they die, but powerful ones can take over the body of someone close to the victim. And despite everything, Maria loved you, Wayne. The gypsy thought Maria stayed on Earth because she had unfinished business with you. We figured that her unfinished business was having sex with the man she loved. If you two had ever slept together, I'd have been finished. So the gypsy gave me a necklace to trap Maria's spirit and a spell. It worked. Instead of Maria taking over my body, she ended up in the necklace, and I pretended to be her. You have no idea how good it felt to see you realize that you love me. I was always scared that I was second in your heart, behind her. I would have pretended to be Maria forever if it meant staying close to you. Soon we'll go back to the gypsy to help Maria's spirit move on, she added with a smile. I love you so much, I said. Please forgive me. I'll never take you for granted again. No one else will ever have even a piece of my heart. I've always loved you, but there was just that small part of my heart that, Wayne, your heart is bigger than you think, and it's going to have to stretch a little more, she said. I looked at her, confused. Can we talk about this in bed? I asked. Her face lit up and I knew everything would be fine. Okay, she agreed, but it's going to have to be gentle and loving until I get used to this. No wild stuff until my body adjusts. But I thought Maria never took over your body. Was there a time when both of you were in there? I asked. Funny you mention periods, she said, because mine is really, really late. I went to the doctor and it turns out there are two of us in here. But it's me and your baby, not me and your high school sweetheart. I took her into my arms and carried her upstairs. We made slow, passionate love and then lay in each other's arms. This is how it's supposed to be, Wayne, she said, kissing me. Wayne, we need to start thinking about names. If it's a boy, we're naming him after my grandfather. His name was Gumford, and we'll call him Gum for short. If it's a girl, I began. We're not naming her Maria, she snapped. I laughed. I was thinking of naming her after your mother. I like the name Penelope. We can call her Penny for short. Over the next 2 years, we had 2 kids, a girl and a boy, and we did use those names. Our family thrived, and we loved each other deeply. We all lived happily ever after, especially on Halloween, when we were very popular. After all, it wouldn't be Halloween without trick-or-treating and all the fun that comes with it, especially for Wayne Dwops, I Dwops, Penny Dwops, and of course, Gum Dwops.